Our kids are under siege. As a criminal defense lawyer and a father, I worry a lot about what can happen to my kids. And today I want to talk to you about some of the differences between the legal system a child faces and the legal system an adult faces. A lot of people don't understand how scary and different an arrest for a child can be. Set aside the fact that in Florida, there's no minimum age for an arrest. That's right, they can and have arrested children as young as 5 or 6 for crimes. And under our law, children of any age can be treated as adults if the crime is serious enough, which is absolutely terrifying. But set all of that aside and let's talk about some of the things that you need to know as a parent if your child's arrested. First and foremost, a child doesn't get a bond. If an adult's arrested for a crime, they're presumed innocent, they go in front of a judge within 24 hours, and the judge sets release conditions. So unless you're accused of murder or something of equal seriousness, you're going to get a bond as an adult. The same is not true of a child. They use a different system and a different process to decide whether a child needs to be held secure. A child can be held secure for up to 21 days for being arrested for a serious crime, or a crime involving a threat of violence, a crime involving a firearm, or, as we're seeing today, a school threat. If a child's held secure, that means they're kept in a juvenile detention facility for 21 days. That's not a camp sleepaway. That's a terrifying juvenile jail filled with some of the most frightening kids you'll ever meet. I can't tell you the number of times I've been in a courtroom and seen juvenile defendants who are 15 years old, 6 foot something, already shaving, and have a long criminal history worse than almost any adult out there. And because they're children, they don't appreciate the consequences of their actions. Most adult defendants try to be on their best behavior when they go to court because they want to make a good impression on the judge, the prosecutor, etc. Not so a juvenile defendant. They're prone to outbursts, acting out, violence, and threats, and that's in the courtroom. Can you imagine what it's like for snookums at night when the sun goes down and there's 40 of them and one underpaid, overstressed juvenile security officer trying to keep the peace? It's a terrifying prospect, and I can tell you that if my child was held secure, I wouldn't sleep a single wink at night, and I'd be doing everything in my power to get them out. That's why it's so important that if your child is arrested, you immediately hire a lawyer, because that lawyer can make all the difference in getting your child released. In addition to the secure detention, there is an opportunity to have that reviewed, but that happens very quickly, and you need to have a lawyer who's prepared to go in there, argue the best legal arguments possible, or try to make the best negotiations with the state so your child doesn't spend any longer in juvenile detention than necessary. Another key difference from juvenile court is that you have to go to court each and every time. The juvenile and one of their parents has to go to court. You can't waive it, you can't go to work and let your lawyer do it. So juvenile cases are much more time consuming and much more of a burden on the family, because not only is your child going to have to go, you're going to have to go too. The juvenile court system itself is also very different. When you think of an adult accused of a crime, you think of a jury trial, you think of a prosecutor, you think of those kinds of things. And now many of those things are present in juvenile court, with one key exception. You don't have a jury trial as a juvenile. So unless the case is what we call bumped up to adult court, your child's fate is in the hands of a judge. If that's a jaded, burned out judge, if that's a heavy-handed judge, if that's a liberal let-them-go judge, then that's the fate that your child has been dealt, and no amount of jury sympathy or no amount of jury pardon is possible. It's going to be the judge who decides everything. The same judge who decides about bond is going to decide about guilt or innocence and about the sentence. And let's talk a little bit about sentencing. As an adult, when you go into court, you have an idea of what the charges are and the sentences you face. Not so as a juvenile. Juveniles can actually be kept under the authority of the court until the age of majority or beyond in certain circumstances. That means a 13 or 14-year-old could be on probation for years for a misdemeanor offense, when as an adult, we would only be facing 6 months to a year, depending on the misdemeanor. Now, that can be good because the same leniency doesn't always apply to adult court, especially when you're talking about juveniles accused of felonies. But 14 years old and placed on probation until you turn 18, that's a heavy road to hoe for most kids. And if your child's having difficulty at school or misbehaving, that probation sentence is going to quickly turn into an escalating nightmare of jail and could even end up with your child in a juvenile detention center. Now, that's not to say that every juvenile case is a probationary case. There are juvenile prisons where the worst of the worst are held. And for certain offenses, your child may be looking at a juvenile commitment program until they reach the age of majority. Again, a truly terrifying experience you want to avoid for your child at all costs. But it's not just guilt or innocence that can ruin your child's life if they're accused of a crime. If your child's arrested, the chances are very good they're going to be kicked out of school and probably not allowed back. That leaves you with limited options: homeschooling, virtual school, or sometimes, depending on the district, there may be a, quote, bad kid school where they send children with troubled criminal histories. I don't know about you, but the idea of plucking my child from their educational environment and placing them in with a bunch of bad kids in a quasi-jail-like school setting doesn't strike me as a great idea. It seems like my kid would only be exposed to bad habits and learn from the worst, not the best. We all know how vulnerable children are to peer pressure. I'd much rather my children have the normal level of peer pressure at high school than the peer pressure to learn how to hotwire cars and commit credit card fraud from all their buddies in the juvenile justice school. If your child is accused of a crime and the school board is considering taking disciplinary action, an attorney can help you understand and navigate those options. They can explain to you the importance of relying on federal law and maybe connect you with an education attorney who can advocate for you on your behalf. If your child has a history of disciplinary issues at school, but is the beneficiary of an IEP, if it has any kind of learning challenges, that can be a defense and a mitigator that can help them not only stay in school, but stay out of trouble. You have to understand how all of that works together, and an experienced attorney can help connect you with an experienced adolescent counselor or juvenile expert who can come up with a mitigation package to perhaps sway both the state and the school to make sure your child's life is not completely derailed because of one childish accident. One consequence that a lot of people don't think about is college scholarships, and athletic programs. If you end up with a juvenile record, you may be ineligible for certain scholarships, you may have a difficult time getting into college, and you may have a difficult time participating in a lot of activities like sports and extracurricular activities that are so important to children, not just for their development, but for their social life. All in all, being arrested as a child is absolutely a nightmare, and it's something as a parent we need to do everything we can to avoid by being the first line of defense and teaching our kids the difference between right and wrong. But if they are accused of a crime, then you need to circle the wagons, hire the best lawyer possible, and fight like hell to save their future, because make no mistake about it, their future is absolutely on the line if they've been arrested. I want to talk specifically right now about school threats and online violence. We all know that bullying is wrong, and the kind of bullying most of us experienced is going to pale in comparison to the type of bullying our kids are vulnerable to today. Social media permits bullying on steroids, and the internet amplifies and expands the reach and range of bullies. It's a 24/7 nightmare if you're a bullied child, and I can certainly understand and sympathize with that. That being said, most schools and law enforcement have taken an absolute zero tolerance policy to any kind of online threats or any kind of jokes about things like school shootings, school bombings, or disrupting school functions. Internet service providers, games like Fortnite, and programs like Snapchat are cooperating with the federal government and are actually reporting children who make what I would consider to be immature or stupid jokes online. Recently, we saw a young child arrested for liking a comment about shooting up a school. All the kid said was, "Me too," or something similar to that. And they were arrested publicly, handcuffed, stuffed in the back of a patrol car, and are currently being held secure for what seems like an innocuous online comment. As parents, we need to educate our children. It's not safe to make threats, even in jest. It's not safe to talk about killing people. It's not safe to talk about bombs and guns. It's not safe to take talking from Fortnite and apply it in real life. Unfortunately, most kids can't understand the difference, or they don't understand the severity of it. They think it's all a joke. And it is all a joke until the police come knocking at your door at 4 o'clock. And now you're looking at a whole new world, and your 14-year-old's life is turned upside down because of an online comment. Folks, if that happens to you, don't hesitate to reach out and contact the most experienced criminal defense attorney you can find. Time is absolutely of the essence. You need someone who can network with the police, network with the state, network with the schools, and try to turn this event around for your child before they face a lifetime stigma they'll never be able to overcome. It's tough enough being a kid. They don't need to fight an uphill battle against the legal system. If you or someone you know needs help with a juvenile crime, please don't hesitate to call us at Aaron Delgado Associates. We have decades of experience defending all types of crimes, including juveniles charged with serious crimes, whether in adult court or juvenile court, and we'd be happy to help you and your family get your child's life back on track.